Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of the Fishing Teacher, and thank you very much for checking today's video out. And guys, today we're going to be talking about a video that I think is super important for everybody to learn a little bit about, and that is how to make a determination about how long you need to fish a spot before you leave it. Like what's the good time frame there, because there's a lot to it, a lot of different variables. So we'll get into that here in this video. So real quick guys, before we get started, I just want to remind anybody out there that's interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by going to my Facebook page, Randy Block, Professional Angler, and just shoot me a private message there, and I'll give you all the details about that. So much appreciated. Okay guys, when you're talking about how much time to spend in an area, there's a lot of different factors to consider as far as making that determination. And I think one of the biggest things in fishing, one of the biggest sort of decisions that anglers have to make if the fish are not biting is, do you need to move the area? Do you need to move your area where you're fishing, or do you need to change your technique? Because sometimes it's one or the other, and sometimes it's both. But specifically what I want to talk about here is when you need to move areas. Now, first of all, I think one of the biggest considerations in this is when you're trying to determine that. Let's say, for example, you've been fishing for 2 or 3 hours and you haven't had a bite, and you need to decide, okay, man, do I need to get out of here, or do I need just to change techniques or whatever? The biggest consideration is the type of cover that you're fishing, as far as the amount of cover. Because let's say, for example, you're fishing an area that's got a giant grass bed where there's just tons of cover. Obviously, there's a lot more places where those fish can be at. Over if you're fishing just like a straight stretch of rocky bank, where there's no cover there. So your options are a little bit limited, more limited in one situation there. Or it could be the same, let's say, for example, you're fishing a row bank that's got a lot of boat docks on there that offer a lot of cover. If you're fishing an area, whether it be a bank or just a general part of the creek or something like that, that has a lot of cover, that you may want to stay a little bit longer, and you may want to try some different techniques. Now let's say, for example, let's go back to the boat dock situation. Let's say you're in a cove that's full of boat docks, and you go through there the first pass that you make, and say you're casting a shaky head worm around the corners of the docks, and you don't get any bites. The next thing you might want to do is get in there and put on a jig or a wacky rig and try skipping it underneath the docks, back in the shade a little bit. You might give that a try. Or maybe sometimes you might try throwing a jerk bait or a chatterbait along the corners of the docks, something like that. If you've tried 2 or 3 different techniques on the piece of area that you're fishing, the structure that you're fishing, and you're still not getting bites, that's a good time that you want to move there. But if you say for example, if you're fishing a rocky bank and you're going down through there with a crankbait and you're not catching anything on a crankbait on there, if you're fishing open rocks like that, if there's many fish that are using that particular area, most likely you're going to catch a few on a crankbait, unless it's winter time where the water's super cold. So in other words, if you have an area that there's not much cover on there, you don't have to spend so much time in there. Here's my rule of thumb, guys. If I'm fishing an area, and say that I pull up into a spot that looks really good, and I fish it for maybe 30 minutes and don't get a bite, that's the first time frame that I consider about making a change. Again, if I'm fishing 30 minutes without a bite on an area that's got a lot of cover in it, I may stay longer. But if I fish 30 minutes on an area that does not have much cover, I'd think about making a change to the next area there. Now, when you make a change, you have to make a change that gets you in different water, as far as completely different water. Let's say, for example, you're fishing a creek arm of the lake that's got 2 foot of visibility and secondary points and rocky banks and that type of stuff. If you want to make a change, guys, don't go around to the next creek that's a half mile down the lake that's set up the same way, that looks the same, and start fishing there. If you're going to make an area change, make a drastic area change. Let's say, for example, you're fishing that creek and you want to make an area change. The next thing you do is you might go out on the main lake and start fishing bluffs, or start fishing main lake points, or you may want run, 15 miles up the lake and get into an area that's got different water clarity. Let's say you were fishing in an area that had 2 foot of water visibility. You might want to run up the lake and get into an area that's got 1 foot of water visibility, or you might want to run down the lake and get into an area that's got 4 foot of water visibility. So change it up quite a bit if you're not getting bite. But the main thing, guys, is don't get discouraged if you're not catching them. Fish are always biting somewhere. It's just a matter of finding them. So just use a systematic approach. Just give yourself a little bit of time, make the determination, mix it up, change up baits a little bit, change up areas, and eventually you're going to find them. So hope it helps out. We'll see you guys.